the black conservative movement is it's not covered by the media at all. And you're the biggest voice in it, but there's tons of people out there, Coleman Hughes, whatever, a lot of different people. And the media ignores this like it's not happening. And some of the most interesting conversations that are happening online are black conservatives that are talking about American policy and disagreeing and it's very, very interesting. Trump made gains with minority voters. What do you think explains that? Because we've had the most strenuous year for race relations probably that I can remember. And Donald Trump, who's a very volatile figure, gains with minority voters. What would you attribute that to?
People like me, independent voices, people are not buying it anymore. And goes back to what we talked about earlier, the fatigue of victimhood. I mean, if you weren't tired of being just black this year, when everything, you're struggling, you're just being black. I mean, at a certain point, I kept saying, Black America's going to wake up to this game. You can't just keep doing this every 4 years and popping around and then Black Lives Matter, disappearing like a magic act and then jumping back in, for the next election cycle. Eventually, Black people are going to get smart. And that's what's happening. We're having conversations. We have our own platforms. This is the reason why the left is ignoring us, but at the same time pushing for social media censorship, because it's problematic when people like Candace Owens can gain, millions and millions of followers and, they are no longer relying on the mainstream narrative about race, right? They have another option. And that option sounds a lot better than waking up every day and being miserable just because of the color of your skin and seeing yourself as a victim. Like it just feels better. I have a better product, right? You get to go out and be happy and live your life and you can do anything you want because this is the greatest country in the world versus you are a victim, permanently a victim. Your life is going to suck forever because you were born with brown skin. But
I think it would be fair to say that black people face a different set of challenges than white people. They in many cases, right? And that
in what way specifically?
Well, I think that if you look at where I grew up in Long Island. In Long Island, a lot of my friends were able to inherit homes because their parents got loans after World War II or their grandparents got loans after World War II to buy these houses. And they created the suburbs. I think a lot of black people were excluded not only from those loans, but also from like those communities, like realtors that showed black people houses would be threatened. And it was like, so the suburbs and the house, which seemed like the engine of wealth for a lot of middle-class families, right? Building equity in something, ownership. Black people were excluded from that. So I feel like there is a little bit of catch-up being played, certainly.
But there's not, because that doesn't explain or account for the reason that Black Americans during my grandfather's time did better than Black Americans during my father's time. So that defeats your entire argument, right?
Well,
there was more
but what do you mean?
Ownership. So what happened from the 1950s through to the 1970s, that Black Americans became more impoverished, owned less homes and became more reliant upon the government structure. And the truth is we married the government, welfare. And now, whether you want to argue whether or not that was strategic and whether it's the fault of the government and Lyndon Baines Johnson, for proposing the Great Society Act, which is what married Black women to the government, that's an argument you can have. But you can't say it's because there's this long-standing Black Americans just couldn't break away. If you look at the 100 years following slavery, Black Americans did well. The fact that Black Americans performed better economically under Jim Crow laws than they are doing today, you just cannot point to a systemic racism. It has to do with choices, the choices that we made to marry the government, and the fact that we cannot outthink this government structure, that, Black Americans still believe in the victimhood and will take the handouts, that Black Americans will take to the streets and demand, AOC right now is saying we need to make sure, Black and brown people, the government pays them to stay home. Well, hello, welfare policies that, were the first thing that crippled Black America in the first place, that they're being reintroduced right now under COVID-19. So I always say right now, we have a choice right now if we're going to give another 100 years to Black poverty by all of us saying yes to more government handouts. We don't need government handouts. That's the biggest issue is more from the government. The government is not our parent. It's not our mother. It's not our father. It was an attack on the Black family. But if we don't wake up to that, we're never going to get ahead. Black people make the worst decisions out of every group in America. And you can compare us to who is the most successful group in America. It's not white Americans. So your argument about, white Americans.
Who is this? Is it Asians? It's Asian. I forget who it is. Is it Asians? Some
yes.
Asians, Indians do well.
They weren't given anything.
Indians do well. I'm Irish. We haven't done great.
Yeah. So nobody wants to talk about Asians because it defeats all of the arguments for white people had it easier, because no one's going to say Asian people during World War II were Japanese people were in internment camps.
Right. Well, that should be the title of your.
So why are they ranked above white Americans today?
The title of your next book should be "Nobody Wants to Talk About Asians" by Candace Owens.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah, I do understand. But as a white person, I would say to myself, I was a druggie. I drove around. I did not get pulled over nearly as much as my black friends. I feel like they 100% are more likely to get pulled over, more likely to go to jail. And we're doing a lot of the same things, right? I was, irresponsible, reckless human being. And I just feel like I definitely had certain advantages that put me in a better position versus a kid, just the idea that I had money for a lawyer. So if there's a black kid who got caught smoking a blunt and went to jail, and my parents could maybe get me a lawyer to get me out of it. That to me is it's easier being white than if that's the right.
I see, but here's what's wrong. You just brought up a good point and then you racialized it. Okay. Rich people. Yes. Economic privilege is a real thing. It didn't happen because you're white, right? So it didn't matter if you think that Puff Daddy's son is not going to be better off being pulled off if he has pot, right, than some poor white kid. You're wrong. But you've accepted the argument that it's because of the color of your skin, not because of your economic circumstances.
Right.
It's because of your economic circumstances. Oprah Winfrey doesn't have any offspring, but I'll guarantee you that if they ever got into trouble, they'd be able to get out. Malia and Sasha Obama, who we know like to smoke pot, good for them. They're enjoying their teenage years, right? They are not going to go through the same things that a poor white trash kid is going through. Stop racializing it.
Do you think we should
rich people have more privilege?
Do you think
that's common sense?
Do you think we should legalize weed so that we don't have this crazy drug war that's putting people in jail?
No. I mean, listen, I have to think through those arguments more, because I do think that first and foremost, I think conservatives that pretend like pot is the worst thing in the entire world are just completely crazy and out of control. But the issue is the slippery slope argument. And we know that's real because right now in California, what are they doing? Trying to, with heroin and methamphetamine, they're trying to make it so you just get a ticket and keep going. So the problem with the left is that you never just stop at one thing. You're not like, okay, you legalize pot and they're going to be done, right? They're like already in California pushing for decriminalizing methamphetamine and heroin. And this is now an argument that we have to fight. So it's hard to find what the right answer is when you know that it's never enough to do one thing. Meaning a couple of years ago, it was all about just gay marriage. Right. I mean, the second the Supreme Court passed gay marriage, we were on trans rights, and it's been shoved down our throat. And now we're at kids picking their gender, and bathroom signs need to be all inclusive, and men need tampons in their restroom. So, I mean, I don't know where I stand on it completely, because I understand.
But isn't there a little bit of listen, the slippery slope argument certainly makes a lot of sense, but isn't there so much pain happening because of nonviolent drug offenders being in jail for so long? It's disproportionately affected people that are, as you said, economically disenfranchised. Lots of them happen to be black and Hispanic. I just feel like there's so much pain. There's so many real world consequences to that particular law that we should, especially when it is legal in certain,
decriminalize it.
Yeah, it is legal in certain parts of the country, and people are becoming millionaires. Yeah, okay. So we can
decriminalizing is different than saying making it legal. And I agree with you. I think we spend a lot of time, the idea of anyone being in prison for smoking pot is just ridiculous.
Now, where are you? Are you strictly pro-life, no abortion, no matter what? See, I don't know. We don't know where Candace Owens feels about every single issue. We don't. Are you like 100% never can have an abortion, or is there any gray area with you?
The problem is that there's no gray area with the left, right? So I'm pro-life. I'm unapologetically pro-life because I understand now, as someone who used to be pro-choice, just how brainwashed you are as a young girl in school about abortion. I mean, until I was 25, I thought it was just a clump of cells, which is crazy. I mean, that's just, so that's they're fundamentally teaching you that abortion is birth control. And that it is the responsible thing for you to, kill your child. And when I actually understood the history of abortion and studied Margaret Sanger and understood that it was actually a eugenicist movement, where people were trying to get rid of Black people having any offspring. And when you look at the numbers and you realize that it is Black Americans that are giving disproportionately, the Black population would be double today if it wasn't for abortion. That's a scary thing to even say. And that these clinics are being put strategically in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. I have an issue with what abortion was designed to do and the fact that it's been largely successful. By Margaret Sanger, through and through is this as an American success story. She wanted to make sure people that were Black and brown, as well as immigrants from Eastern Europe, were not able to have any offspring. So I have an issue because I'm educated about it.